And I have said, and I want to repeat, that the greatest threat to national security now is not the acts of banditry or robbery with violence. Those issues have been dealt with significantly by the National Police Service. The greatest threat to national security are leaders who are wearing suits. They go to parliament, they go to high offices, and yet they use those offices to organize young people. Instead of getting them jobs, instead of getting them opportunities, instead of building them, instead of selling their policies to the young people, they are misusing them by engaging them in acts of gangs and goons and creating a threat to national security. I feel very sad that people who are sitting in high offices and who have sat in high offices and who aspire to be in high offices are the ones whom we are now forced as national security organs to police them, to follow their activities, to ensure that the young people they are financing to engage in violence are dealt with. And I'm very sad to see that as we approach these elections, leaders have now become bankrupt of ideas. Instead of engaging in competition, which are proper competition, they want to attract attention using violence and misusing young people. I want to say categorically that we will continue to investigate, we will continue to arrest, we will use the intelligence we have to deal with all these organizers of violence. And particularly, we must deal with the people who are on the forefront to supply money, to supply crude weapons, and to organize violence in the country. I am particularly concerned about what happened to Senator Osotsi in Kisumu. That is not the democracy we fought for. That is not the constitutional aspirations that we gave ourselves. We must, and I will say all leaders must denounce violence, and they must direct their energies, like we are doing here today, to supporting young people in sports, in economic empowerment, in finding employment, in attracting investors, not the kind of activities we saw in Kisumu and the kind of activities we've seen in Kiambu County this morning. Ninataka kuomba koti, I want to ask judiciary, wakuwe also serious. Kila wakati, including when there was violence in the country in 2024, people invaded parliament, goons invaded parliament, the judiciary gave them very flimsy bail terms. Waka invade juicy streets of Nairobi last year, the same. I want to ask the judiciary to partner with us to make sure that we are protecting the people of Kenya, because if they become complacent and as we deal with this matter and leave it to the security executive and the security organs alone, we are not going to have a country. It must be responsibility of everybody. Kama vile nimesisitiza, please jameni tuwajane na siasa ya Goonism. And we are going to sit down with the National Police Service to think of now new strategies of dealing with this disease of goons, which is now like spreading in other parts of the country. And we will give clear directions. Shida imekuwa ni kwamba juzi tulituma polisi kwa public functions in Nyeri, public functions in other places where opposition had rallies. They started fighting the police and saying that we are using tear gas. Now, when we say police should not interfere with public rallies, you see now they bring goons and start fighting. So the police are caught in between, a very difficult situation. We need to agree that tear gas also is a very important asset for dispersing people who are not required. But every time the police have done, they are being criticized. Now I hear some people this morning asking, where is the tear gas? Where is the police with tear gas? Yet the other day they were saying, why are police throwing tear gas? So we must, the police are in a position where they are in problems if they do, they are in problems if they don't. So damned if they do, damned if they don't. This is not acceptable. We need to have, and when we say it, and I hope we reach a stage as a country, religious leaders, civil society, media, the rest of the public, leaders, we reach a stage where we will accept that we need a law that will regulate public functions. The other time when we proposed the law, they said we have our constitution, we don't need it. Now there are problems because these public functions are infiltrated by goons, and organizers of those functions are not taking any responsibility. Now they want to blame the police. Please, I am ready to meet all leaders, opposition or government, and we must pass a law that ensures that public events and public functions are properly regulated by the police, with the organizers taking responsibility on how they organize their functions, including declaring, making a proper declaration that they are not going to fund and support violence. I want to request the media to condemn violence and goonism from all sectors. You don't just wait to criticize the National Police Service. You must also criticize leaders who have been using violent language, divisive language, who are mobilizing young people to cause violence in the country. We must, all of us, collectively ensure that those evil people are ostracized in the society, and they must not find Kenya a comfortable place for them to operate. Why can't people just be, civilized and campaign in peace, and then, convince citizens in the right way? Why we have this tournament is because we want to involve our young people in meaningful activities, sports, economic empowerment, to make sure that we foster cohesion and unity in Trans Nzoia. Trans Nzoia is a reflection of Kenya, and we want Kenyans who live in this county to live together as brothers and sisters in unity. And our desire is to provide a new and a different brand of leadership that does not misuse young people in violence and in other activities. We want to discourage young people from engaging themselves in illicit alcohol and drugs. Ours is to build a clean society, a responsible society, a future that our young people will be leaders of this nation. We have been witnessing in the recent past an uprise of political violence in terms of political activities in Trans Nzoia and other parts of this region. I want to ask politicians, whether they are in opposition or government, to organize their politics around issues and to let the people decide. Let people use a language that is of decorum. Let them avoid raising resources for purpose of organizing violence. We want also to ensure that those people who are aspiring for high offices must stop the rhetoric that is elevating and praising tribalism and division. Those utterances are the ones that are causing the kind of violence that we see across the country. As the National Security Ministry and the National Security organs, we will remain ruthless. The Inspector General of Police has my firm instructions in terms of policy directions that goons and gangs must be exterminated in this country. And we want to see accountability in the activities we've seen in Kiambu this morning and what happened to Senator Osotsi in Kisumu. It must be a lesson that will teach others that violence does not pay. Na tunataka kusema ya kwamba kama taifa la Kenya, ninawasihi sana viongozi hawa tuko hapa saa hizi, hao wabunge, tumekuja hapa kuempower hawa vijana. Na unaona wananchi hawana shida, wako kwa utulivu, wanacheza mpira, vijana wanatangamana, wanaelewana kwa sababu wanatoka jamii tofauti. Lakini hii siasa duni ya ukabila na ukawanyiko na kutumia vijana kwa mambo ya uhuni na violence lazima ikomeshwe katika taifa letu. Na wale walifanya hivyo kwa Kisumu na wale wamefanya hivyo kwa Kiambu, wote lazima washikwe na kustakiwa.